Also want to notice or mention who's on the platform with me today. Of course, Sheriff Flowers is with me, and then to my right is Acting Commander Marty West from the Marshal Service. Not up here is the state attorney who was with us last night on scene, along with the FBI, who helped us in this investigation last night. So we thank them also for their help. We're going to do this in two parts. I'm going to start off by talking about our suspect, tell you who he is, tell you a little bit about him, tell you some of the lead up to the shooting, and then Sheriff Flowers is going to take over as his agency is the lead in the shooting. He's going to give you more details about the shooting itself. So our suspect here, Thomas Steffens, 72-year-old male from Colorado, received a complaint on him last month, and the complaint was from a lady who had gone to an establishment, a bar, had a drink. Our suspect had come up and tried to chat her up. She kept him at arm's length, and then that's all she remembered. And the next thing she knew, it was the next day, and she woke up in our suspect's house, groggy, petting a dog, which she vaguely remembered seeing, and saw a light that she thought was maybe a recording device over where she was laying. She was laying at that point unclothed, not to be too graphic, but she firmly believed that she had been sexually assaulted. Our suspect came into the room, they had a conversation. Our suspect tried to convince her that this was her idea, that she wanted to have sexual intercourse with him, and they went back and forth, and she just asked him to leave. Give me my clothes, let me leave. He tried to keep her there, and eventually she was able to talk him into leaving. So he takes her to the establishment where they were earlier that night and drops her off, at which point she contacts local law enforcement. Law enforcement shows up out there. They see that she's been battered relatively significantly. She's got strangulation marks around her neck. She's got bruising in her inner thighs. And they start doing an in-depth investigation in Colorado and determine that our suspect here, a former doctor, a former neurosurgeon, had prescribed, or they believe taken prescribed medication, and did essentially the date rape routine of putting drugs in her drink, sedating her, taking her home, raping her, and then dropping her off back at the location that he picked her up. They also identified some other instances that kind of corroborated her story with other females, and as a result of their investigation, they issued a warrant for our suspect. Again, our suspect was a former neurosurgeon. He worked for the VA hospital, but he had been suspended in 2025 for some of his inappropriate activities. So he was no longer actively functioning as a doctor. Our suspect knew at that point that law enforcement was trying to interview him. He did not provide an interview, but they did do a search warrant on his vehicle out in Colorado, his house in Colorado, recovered different pieces of evidence. So he knew he was being looked at by law enforcement. And as a result of that, he went on the run. We know that after the warrant was issued on the 25th of February, at some point he loaded up on a bus and went from Colorado and ended up last night in Fort Pierce, where our Marshals Task Force ended up investigating him. And let me take a detour real quick. The Marshals Task Force, some of you may wonder, well, why was the Martin County Sheriff's Office and Indian River County Sheriff's Office and Marshals, why were they all in Indian River County last night? We have a highly trained group of detectives that work as a task force all around South Florida in our scenario, that travel around and track down these bad guys on a daily basis and take them into custody with professionalism. They do it, they're tacticians, they're extremely good at their craft, and they go out and they track down these bad guys. And they do it as a task force because they're stronger that way. And so that's why our deputies were in Indian River County, and sometimes vice versa. So our Marshals Task Force gets on this suspect. He's dropped off, meets a lady in Indian River County. They go to dinner at a restaurant. Some of the undercovers go in there, they verify that he's in there. But of course the restaurant's too populated. They're not going to do a high-risk takedown at that restaurant. They know at this point that he's likely armed. They know at this point that he's made some threats. They leave the restaurant. They pull into Publix, which is right in the St. Plaza. The female goes inside the Publix, comes back out. Again, the determination was made that it was still not safe. There's too many people around to do a takedown at that point. They leave Publix. They pull out into the road, go just a little bit west of the railroad tracks. There's a train there. It's a natural stopping point at that point. The train's going through the tracks. And all of our units collectively did a takedown where they were able to do what we call VIT, a vehicle intervention technique, in order to take our suspect into custody. From that point, it goes into the tactical side, and this is where I'll let Sheriff Flowers kind of take over. Sheriff?
Good afternoon. I want to reemphasize one of the things that Sheriff Budenseek said. When the group conducted a search warrant in Colorado, when the local law enforcement conducted a search warrant, they recovered numerous weapons. The team that was investigating this had constant intel that this suspect had made statements that he was going to go out in a blaze, that he was going to kill multiple law enforcement. I believe the number was 3, that he intended to kill law enforcement, that he wasn't going to be taken alive. So our team took that threat very seriously. And our team knew that, as Sheriff Budenseek said, a takedown in a restaurant, not what we're going to do. A takedown inside of a Publix, not what we're going to do. So our team waited until they got out onto 12th Street, waited for a safe location to conduct a tactical stop of that vehicle. They pinched that vehicle in. At that point, the female that he had been traveling with complied. She got out of the vehicle. They pulled her back. She told them, he has a gun. He's not going to go without a fight. They were giving him commands. They were telling him, get out of the car, listen to what we're saying, do as we're telling you to. He refused to comply. He refused to comply. Our team readied their tactical resources. They were prepared to start firing pepper ball guns to get him to comply. And it was at that point that the suspect opened fire on our deputies, on the Martin County Sheriff's deputies, and on the U.S. Marshals. One U.S. Marshal was struck by gunfire. One of our deputies was injured as a result. We don't know if it was shrapnel. We don't know what it was at this moment still. And the suspect was shot 4 times as a result of this incident inside of the car. He remained inside of the car. We will be conducting a search warrant on the car. Our team has seen his gun and spent shell casings inside of the car. I don't have a picture to show you, but it is inside of the vehicle, and we will recover it, and we'll get pictures out to you. There is body cam of this incident. Working with the U.S. Marshal's Office, part of our agreement with them is that all video release, Sheriff Budenseek and I regularly release body cam to you guys. The U.S. Marshal's Office operates differently. This is a U.S. Marshal's investigation and a U.S. Marshal's case. We are unable to release body cam on this until it is approved by the AUSA's office. So that's not something that we're going to be able to give you right away. Just want to give you that heads up right away. I'd love to be up here showing you video. I think Sheriff Budenseek would agree. Unfortunately, in these circumstances with federal partners, we have to comply with their rules. So our deputies were all working and operating under the federal guidelines. They were working as U.S. Marshals, despite the fact that they were in Indian River County. They did a great job. They did exactly what we trained them to do. As Sheriff Budenseek said, these are tip of the spear guys. These are guys that are on my SWAT team. These are people that are prepared to handle anything that comes before them. And this guy made the decision that he wanted to shoot at deputies, and we shot back at him. He is in the hospital. He is recovering. He will be charged. He has the active warrant. As you can see, the charges on there. He will also be charged with attempted murder. Those are all things that our detectives are working on now. As well as potentially federal charges. The FBI was there last night. They're looking at charging him with threats against a federal law enforcement agent. And our partners with the U.S. Marshals, he was released last night. The U.S. Marshal that was shot on scene, he was released last night, and he's recovering. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Sheriff Budenseek, and we'll take your questions. Thank you.
So just so we can be clear, if you want to ask me questions, I'll do it, and then I can hand it back over to Sheriff Flowers. So if you want to direct him, go ahead, Al.
Did he come by bus to Florida? And if so, then how did he wind up getting a vehicle?
The question is, did he come by bus to Florida? If so, how did he wind up getting a vehicle? He did come by bus, Greyhound bus, to Fort Pierce, and then a female who is not a suspect in this case, maybe even a victim, but a female ended up picking him up at that bus station. They went to dinner, and then what the sheriff just described transpired.
Do we know how he met the female? Had they been in conversations before he left Colorado?
The question is, do we know how he met the female? And the answer is we believe he was in communication with her prior to arrival here in Florida.
I guess the original incident where these sexual assault charges stem from in Colorado, I guess, the drugging, when did that occur?
So the question is, when did the drugging occur? And the answer is February 25th is when that occurred.
said he had an intention of shooting 3 deputies. Where was he making that message known? Was that on social media? How
Sheriff
were
can
you?
let you do it.
Yeah, so the marshals, as part of this, when the case happens in Colorado, the U.S. Marshal's Office adopted this case. And so they're actively working intelligence on this, and they're getting real-time information, feeding that to our guys who are on the ground. And so that's one of those items. Can't really get into the details of where that intel is coming from, but they're actively talking to people that he's talking to, and you know what he's saying. He was trying to throw the marshals off the track. He was trying to say that he had gone west, that he had gone into the mountains. He didn't want them to know that he was going to Florida, and so he was trying to really just relay a message. I think he was also trying to act very strong. He said multiple things about being an excellent marksman, about having access to high-powered weapons. And of course, when the search warrant was executed, he did have multiple high-powered weapons in the house. So we take those threats seriously. And when we hear that he has an intention, we're going to treat it that way.
I know you can't go deep into the intel, but was he making these conversations with other people? Was he on social media? Where was he?
I wouldn't say social media. I think these are direct contacts that he's having with people. Social media, as far as I'm aware, it's direct contacts.
What is your reaction that a doctor, a physician, would conduct himself like this?
It's very disappointing. You know, anytime we have to stand up here in front of you because somebody tarnishes the badge, that's always a disappointing day for us. This is one of those situations where, you know, it makes all physicians look bad when something like this happens, when you have somebody who's a trusted individual in the community doing something like this, using the drugs that they're trusted to prescribe to somebody to commit a rape. And so it's very disappointing. The other thing that it makes me think of, a lot of people will say to us, you know, oh, it's just an elderly person that you're doing a traffic stop on. Yeah, he's 72 years old, but he came out guns blazing. And so we have to take every threat seriously. With that, I'll turn it back over to Sheriff Budenseek.
What city in Colorado did this date rape thing happen, and what city was seeking to bring him back to Colorado?
The question is what city was that, and the answer is, I don't remember, Will. Grand Junction. Grand Junction.
Colorado.
Got it.
Is he a suspect in several different rapes of women involving date rape drugs?
So the question is he a suspect in other cases? And the answer is yes, he
How
is.
many? How many?
I don't know. I read about one other this morning, but I don't know the details of all their cases. So good one.
How many in total law enforcement officers fired their weapons last night?
So the
And
question,
what was the total number of shots, roughly?
the question is how many law enforcement officers fired the weapons last night? The answer is 5. And how many shots were fired? And the answer is I don't know exactly, but it was a lot. You don't shoot at 8 heavily armed, trained law enforcement officers and expect them not to return heavy gunfire. That's exactly what they're trained to do. That's what we expect them to do. They're still, there's a lot of rounds, a lot of shell casings that they're processing. I don't know the exact round count, but it was significant.
And also, last question, you mentioned the individual was from the FBI or the Marshal Service that got struck in the leg. Was that, can you definitively say, or do you know if that shot was fired by Mr. Steffens, or was it potentially friendly fire?
So the question is, the shot that struck the marshal, was it friendly fire? And the answer is no. It was our suspect shooting from the passenger seat of the car back towards our deputies, the sheriff's deputies, and the marshals. And he struck our cars multiple times, and he struck our marshal at least once. Our marshal was hurt in the leg. He was stapled up there. Thankfully, it was something they could fix last night, and he's got a pretty significant wound in the chest. And we are exploring the idea of the possibility that he may have been actually struck by another round in the vest, which could have potentially saved his life.
Did you say a deputy was also injured somehow, and what about that?
So the question is, was a deputy also injured? One of Sheriff Flowers' deputies had a small wound, and we're trying to determine where that came from. Again, you can't really see in that photo, but there's 3 vehicles behind the suspect vehicle, and then vehicles behind them. So there were a lot of things that caused shrapnel to come off of the vehicles as they were struck. And again, that white pickup truck in the back there was struck multiple times. That's our truck. That's Martin County Sheriff's Office truck. And then the Indian River County Sheriff's Office truck in the front was struck also.
Sure. How many law enforcement officers were injured? 3 or?
Question is, how many law enforcement officers were injured? We have 1 marshal that was shot, definitively shot. And then we have 1 Indian River Sheriff's deputy that had some superficial wounds.
Sheriff Budenseek, can you go over the why was everyone there that night? You know, what's the relationship?
Absolutely. The question is, explain the task force. So jurisdiction, you know, I have Martin County, the sheriff has Indian River County. We're all limited to our jurisdictions. The marshals, however, are a federal organization that they have the umbrella to go anywhere in the country, sometimes out of the country if need be, to catch these bad guys. With the marshals umbrella, it gives us authority to pool our best players together, our best tacticians, our best players together, and we're stronger together. So we have MOUs, memorandums of understandings with these other agencies, where we can move fluidly and chase these bad guys wherever they are. So you see us routinely catching bad guys, and we say we can touch you anywhere. We can touch you anywhere because of this memorandum of understanding with the marshals.
Why did he come to Florida?
The question is, why did he come to Florida? And the best answer I have, Al, is just to get away from what he had out in Colorado.
Is the vehicle he was in that silver one in the middle of the picture that's got all the bullet holes in it?
The question is the vehicle he was in that vehicle? Yes. So our deputies and the task force officers were shooting from the rear of the pickup trucks. They had cover there. And he remained in that passenger seat, giving himself some cover. So you can see they had a hard time actually getting to him.
Is he in the back seat?
Front seat.
Was he driving or was a female driving?
The question was he driving? He was a passenger in the front.
Can you go over how he stopped the car? How he stopped the car?
How?
From moving with the ID?
Yeah.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, can I explain how he stopped the car? Well, he didn't stop the car.
you-
We stopped the car
stop
for him. Yeah, so again, it's incumbent upon us to do tactical takedowns in a safe manner. And they have to evaluate. This is a fluid movement. These guys do it all the time. The restaurant didn't work. It wasn't safe. Publix didn't work. It wasn't safe. They got a natural stopping point along the route there where the railroad track was. So they did a front and rear block where that car is immobilized. If he wanted to run, he couldn't run. And it allowed them to actually get in position. It kept them safe. Our guys were all behind cover while this shooting took place. And when we do release the video, which I look forward to release to you, you can see that our response is actually quite calm for what they're doing. They're in a shooting, but they're quite calm. They're talking to each other. They're rendering aid to their comrade that's on the ground, and they're talking through systematically what they're going to do next.
How long did this last, this shootout last?
So the question is, how long did the shootout last? There's 2 volleys of shots. There was the initial commands to get out of the car, and then there's the don't do it, don't do it, and then a first volley of shots where he reaches out and shoots at them, it looks like. And then there's a lull, more commands, more commands. They're not sure at that point, it looks like, whether he's coherent or not, but he is. He shoots back at them again, and there's another volley of shots. At that point, they're not sure if he's incapacitated, but he's not. And then they take about 10 minutes to go through shooting less lethal gas into the car, and eventually he comes out and is taken into custody. So he's not unconscious during this incident at all.
What time did it happen?
The question is, what time did it happen? Around 8:30 p.m. last night.
What kind of firearm was he shooting from? Was it a rifle, handgun, shotgun from the car?
The question is, what kind of firearm was he using? The answer is it was a handgun. I don't know the caliber.
So did you say, I'm thinking back, you said, I believe the guy was spotted in a restaurant in Fort Pierce with a woman,
Yes.
and then he left and then he went into a public store? Is that right?
No. So the question is sequence. So he's picked up by the lady at the bus stop in Fort Pierce. They drive from Fort Pierce to a restaurant right there, right around the corner.
Indian River County.
Yeah, in Indian River County, I'm sorry. And the restaurant, I believe, is actually in the Publix parking lot. They're in the restaurant, and then they leave the restaurant, and she goes into Publix and comes back out. And then they leave the Publix, and that's where the incident takes place.
She picked him up at a bus stop in Fort Pierce or in Indian River County?
Fort Pierce.
Fort Pierce.
And how did you realize, hey, this guy's a bad person, we need to grab him? Who called you about that?
The question is, how do we realize he's a bad person? And again, I'm not going to betray their tactics, but the marshals are pretty good at what they do. And if you rape a lady, if you're a doctor and you take drugs and you medicate her and rape her, they're going to find you wherever you are. It doesn't matter if you're in the United States or not. They're going to find you, and that's what they did in this case.
Sheriff, can you talk to me again how the shooting happened? He was shot with non-lethal and lethal? Was he shot inside the car or outside the car? Can you walk me through again?
I can. So the question is, shooting, how did it take place? So the initial takedown, our deputies, task force officers, they got in a position of cover behind their vehicles and ordered him out. She gets out of the car. She's taken into custody. She says that he's there and he wants to go out in a blaze of glory. She reiterates what the sheriff says they already knew. At some point during their commands, get out of the car, hands up, he shoots at them, and they return fire. They think they've neutralized them at this point. It looks like, again, we have not interviewed any of these, any of our shooters in this case, but I have watched the body camera videos. It looks like they believe they've neutralized them, say stop shooting. They go back to doing commands, challenging him to see if he's been shot, if he's coherent. A short time later, the shooting happens again. They do the same process all over again to see if he's alive, coherent, and he is, and they proceed to use gas to get him out of the car. They didn't shoot him with gas, but they used pepper balls to fill the car up with gas and move him out of the car. You can. Go ahead, sure.
Our team also, I want to mention, deployed a drone to be able to see into the vehicle whether or not he was still moving, what his level of injuries were. Obviously, at that point, he's fired at us. We want to make sure that before we move up to take him into custody, none of our people get hurt. And so our team was actively looking to determine. And so they were using less lethal. As a matter of fact, when he got out of the car, when we finally did take him into custody, he was still defiant. He was still raising his middle finger at our deputies. He was still actively working against us, even though he had been shot 4 times. So this is somebody who did not want to go to jail. They did not want to deal with the justice that is meant to be served in this case. Thank you.
Would Mr. West, since talking about the task force, care to talk about their role in this, or explain anything, or perhaps add some insight, or?
No, will.
I mean, no, that's good.
The question is, how does the task force work? The U.S. Marshals, nationwide, we have the authority and the jurisdiction. Obviously, we go out every day, and we're targeting the worst of the worst, our most violent offenders. Our task force partners are our sheriff's departments, our police departments, our state agencies that we work with. And a task force it's I think the best. It's kind of like a Team USA basketball team. We take the absolute best players from these agencies, from Martin County Sheriff's Office, from Indian River, and these teams go out and they target these people that are wanted for the homicides in this area. They target the people that are wanted for child molestation, armed robbery here in Indian County, here in Martin County. And then when we have a situation where a subject comes in from out of state, as Mr. Steffens did, came from Colorado. He interjects himself into our local community. We know he's a bad guy. We know he does bad things. Well, we get with our state and local partners again, and we go out and we basically hunt that person down, which is what happened last night. I mean, we probably had less than, 12 hours, 24-hour notification that he was here in the state of Florida. The teams mobilized. They went out last night. They located him. And then showed extraordinary patience in taking him down. They decided not to do it in a bar for obvious reasons. They decided not to take him in front of the Publix when the female associate went inside, because we have people coming in and out of Publix. They waited. They knew that they were probably going back to her house, but it was decided that it would be a safer operation to take them in a vehicle, because if he gets back to the house, then we have a whole nother scenario that could develop. We don't know who's in the house. We don't know if he brought additional weapons with him that he could hide inside the house. So the safest thing for the community, the safest thing for our officers last night was to basically, it's almost like a felony vehicle stop. You guys have seen 1,000 of those on the news, where they all are standing behind their vehicles. They're giving commands. The female got out, complied exactly as we asked her to. The officers continued to try to coax Mr. Steffens out to surrender on multiple occasions. He chose not to. He chose to engage with a firearm. And even after that first volley of shots, our officers went right back into, hey, come on out, give up, do the right thing. And his answer was to fire additional rounds. And one of those rounds struck our deputy marshal. So it's a dangerous job, but working with state and locals, our sheriffs, our police, they give us the absolute best that they have. They're SWAT operators. The men and the women of the departments they're the most highly trained and the best investigators. And these people go out every day to make sure that these communities that you guys live in are safe and free of these guys as quickly as possible. God knows what he would have done if he'd been here for a week or a month, how much damage he could have, wreaked here in Martin County or in Indian River. So,
And the charges that he was wanted on, out of Colorado are like state level charges out of Colorado? Is that right?
Correct. Yes, sir. The question is the charges that he is wanted on out of Colorado. Those are state charges for 2 counts of sexual assault, a second-degree assault, and a third-degree assault. The marshals are authorized by federal law to adopt these state cases, just like we take Martin County's homicides or Indian River's armed robbery or child molestation. We are authorized to adopt that case as a federal investigation and then work with these departments to go out and locate and apprehend these bad guys.
So there definitely were, just to be clear, outstanding warrants for this guy's arrest.
The question was there outstanding warrants? Correct. There were 4 outstanding warrants from Colorado, from Grand Junction Police Department for his arrest.
What's his current condition, Sheriff?
Sheriff, I'll let you take that, man.
The question is, what's his current condition? And the answer is he is in stable condition.
What hospital is he in?
The question is, what hospital, Longwood? He was ambulance transported to Longwood last night, post-shooting.
He's expected to survive?
Question is he expected to survive? The answer is yes.
So what happens when he's released from the hospital?
Question is, what happens when he's released from the hospital? He goes to jail, and we charge him with these warrants that are pending, and then we charge him with the additional attempted murders of our deputies that were out there on scene.
So would he be going to the Indian River County Jail then, or is he gonna be shipped right back to Colorado?
The question is, where's he going to go immediately post? And the answer is, we'll have to figure that out through the legal system. We'll deal with Colorado. We'll deal with our local state attorney. Again, they were on scene last night. We'll figure that out after he gets released. Good.
You might have touched on this, Sheriff. How long was he in Florida before the shooting took place?
Question is, how long in Florida before the shooting? And the answer was just a few hours.
How long was he on the run?
Question is, how long on the run? The warrant was issued on the 25th of February.
So, 8 days. What is your reaction to this?
Well, my reaction is threefold. One is I'm thankful that all of our operators are fine. They're good. And, of course, we're coming along with peer support behind just to make sure that they're fine. They've got a few days off. They're on paid administrative leave as a standard process. So we're happy that they're fine. I'm happy that the residents of Indian River County, in this case, no one was hurt. And then I'm appalled, of course, at the actions of a doctor who has a position of trust, who took that position, violated it, and then continued to violate it by coming down here to Florida and engaging our deputies, our marshals, in a gun battle.
What was the prescription medication he used to date rape those ladies?
The question is, what was the medication? It was a cocktail, and I read it, and I just can't remember what they were.
And he had a prescription for that? Was he using that too, or he just got that so he could subdue women?
So the question is, how did he get the medication? The answer is he was prescribing some of the medication to his wife, who did not know that the medication was prescribed to her, and then he was taking that medication and perpetrating the crime. One more question. One more question. Go ahead.
Can you say the name of the establishment where the suspect originally met the victim?
You mean the bar, the question of the bar? Sheriff, I don't know the answer.
I don't have that either. That'll be something you have to get out of the original arrest affidavit.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Appreciate it.